Hi, this is Stacy, your business professor for international business, and this module's topic is about economic integration and the international monetary system. And there's been some exciting developments this past year. I'm filming this in October of 2016, so some really exciting things are happening. As it relates to economic integration, there's a couple of pushbacks. So we've had the Brexit vote. So we have Britain that has voted to, the UK has voted to separate from the European Union. Huge big news there, and they're still trying to figure out how they're going to make that happen. Prime Minister just announced that they're for sure going to separate by the spring of 2017, and they're laying in plans right now for how to make that separation. So it's a kind of economic disintegration. It's the opposite of economic integration. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out for the UK. So far, it hasn't been very positive for their markets, but we'll see what happens. The overall theory and the concept behind economic integration is that as barriers to trade are removed, that the long-term impact is economic development and a boost to those economies who choose to integrate. Those economies who choose to isolate, to erect barriers to trade, that they stagnate and have a difficult time growing and keeping up with global innovation, global developments, and overall that the economic disintegration or creating barriers to trade is hurting their economies. So it'll be interesting to see how the UK, once a part of the EU, now is separating. Is it going to benefit its economy or hurt its economy? We also are hot into the season of the presidential debates and the campaign for president for 2017 here in the U.S. And also a lot of very interesting concepts being thrown around related to trade on the campaign trail. The Republicans, who traditionally are very pro-trade party, being led by Donald Trump right now as the key candidate, is, I would say, is markedly anti-trade or is looking at erecting barriers to trade that haven't previously existed. So he wants to revise or eliminate NAFTA. He is against the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. These are traditionally more of positions that we'd see unions supporting, and unions tend to align with the Democratic Party. So these kind of protectionist measures are things that we typically see coming out of more liberal policies, not the conservative policies. So there's kind of a twist that's going on there in the Republican landscape in the United States, at least. On the Democratic side, we also have Hillary Clinton, who was for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but as she has seen the current version of that, is against it and wants to renegotiate certain aspects of it. And at the same time, we have our current president, Barack Obama, who is pushing really, really hard to get the Trans-Pacific Partnership put through so that it becomes one of the notches in the belt of his legacy as President of the United States. So amazing things happening and incredible shifts, major global shifts in the area of global economic integration. There's another thing that happened just this past week. Again, I'm filming this on October 6th, and this was implemented October 1st, where the IMF included the Chinese renminbi as part of the basket of currencies that value the special drawing rights. These are basically reserve currencies, and again, this is all in the chapters that you need to be reading this week to understand how all this fits together. But basically what I have on screen here is a graphic from the Wall Street Journal article about this, the rise of the renminbi. And you can see here, it says that the yuan has become a major global player in trade and finance, although most transactions are still in dollars. But the IMF gave the yuan a huge nod and valuing the special drawing rights. There's a basket of currencies that are used to value special drawing rights. So right now, as you can see from this chart, the most global trade is done in US dollars. That's the blue here. And then the next major currency is euro, and then all others. And you can see in 2011, the renminbi was a very, the yuan, the renminbi was a very small portion of that. And in 2015, it's kind of tripled in its settlements. If you look here on the larger chart, in 2010, we have, less than, maybe 25 billion yuan that's used in settling international trade. And then now we're well above 2,000 billion yuan being used to settle international trade. So that's quite a progression there in the global presence of the yuan being used in international trade as a settlement currency, although the dollar still clearly dominates this global landscape. If you can go and look up what the basket of currencies are as of the filming of this. The U.S. to value the SDR, the U.S. was around 40% used to value the SDR, around 30% for the euro, almost 11% for the yuan or the renminbi, and then next falls the Japanese yen. And then finally, the British sterling or the British pound rounds out that 5 currency basket to value the SDR. So wow, the renminbi just really shot ahead to the head of the pack there, even beating out sterling and the Japanese yen as a settlement currency, or as a currency that values that that SDR, which is the settlement currency for the International Monetary Fund. Okay, so please take a look at that. I think one of the interesting things is that because the United States, let me just say this, one of the things that makes this so important is that China is trying to position its currency as a global currency, as a stable currency. It's a currency that you can trust, like the US dollar. People prefer to deal in the US dollar. Why? Because the US dollar comes from a country that has an independent central bank, that has a rule of law, that has independent financial institutions. So it's just this idea that there are a lot of safeguards that make the U.S. economy one of the safest economies, a true safe haven for currency around the world. If there's a place in the world that is going to be stable and immune from political upheaval or changes in law, sudden, rapid, kind of like revolutionary changes in rule of law, or revolutionary changes in how the currency is settled and manipulated and managed within a country, the United States by far is seen as the safest in the world. And this is why we have most of global trade being done in a U.S. denominated currency. It's also one of the reasons that the Chinese are investing in the United States. Over $80 billion last year, or in 2015 or 2016, it was over $80 billion of investment from China in the United States. 10 years ago, I think it was only around 5 or 6 billion, something like that. So there's huge growth of people wanting to take their domestic currency, put it into US dollars and put it in this, what is considered a very safe haven or a safe economy. What that does for the US is it actually allows us to run huge trade deficits, because this whole cycle of economics, it kind of gets countered in a way artificially. In other words, when a country runs a trade deficit, what's supposed to happen is its currency is, when a country runs a trade deficit, that means that it's buying more stuff from outside than it's selling to outside. If I'm buying more Chinese stuff than I'm selling to China, then that means I'm demanding more of their currency and less of my currency. So what that should result in is a drop in the value of the US currency, which makes foreign goods more expensive, which then brings that trade balance back into line. But if your currency is viewed and your economy is viewed as a safe haven economy and a safe haven currency, no matter how much your currency drops in valuation, people are still going to flock to that currency. I don't know if you can follow my reasoning there, but what having a safe haven currency does is it bolsters demand for that currency, quite simply. So if China, eventually they'll get there, they are working towards also becoming this kind of safe haven community. Well, they're certainly not there right now, right? I mean, a lot of people do not trust the Chinese rule of law. They do not trust the economy. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that there's a lack of trust there still, even though China is this huge economic powerhouse, second largest economy in the world. But I think, you know, eventually, it might take 50 years. China is very slow in making these kind of progressive changes to their economy. They're still a communist government, and are running their own kind of communist style of capitalism and slowly implementing and liberalizing their economy. So I think it'll probably take them 50 to 100 years to get there. But I think maybe sooner than we think, they are going to rival the U.S. as a safe haven economy. And this is really just the historic first step to that happening. So good luck. There's tons of stuff. You know, usually this International Monetary Fund post that you need to write for the Wall Street Journal this week is usually a difficult one for students to find articles that they can relate to and that they can understand. But my goodness, there's so much going on right now with economic integration and disintegration and what's happening with the International Monetary Fund that the Wall Street Journal is just filled with a plethora of articles that you can choose from. So have a good week studying this, and please contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.